Is this Jack? Is that Jack? Am I Jack? You don't know Jack. That's what today's video is about. Let's go. All right, I'm going to tell you a story. A story about a man named Jack. And it is profound, and it is the real deal of what true rock bottom is. A lot of you might cringe to this. A lot of you might say, why are we even talking about Jack? Well, folks, because you don't know Jack. And I'm going to tell you why. Melissa 0774 has sent me a story that touched me to the core because I was almost Jack. You may be almost Jack, or you are Jack. But to get to know Jack, we're going to read his story real quick, and I'm going to tell you how that relates to me in my active alcoholism that I suffered for 23 plus years. Because I was almost Jack, and I was almost at this bus stop. Be patient, folks. This story is worth your time, and it's worth you ingesting in order to find out if Jack's story relates to you and what you can do to hopefully prevent becoming Jack in your life. Los Gates, let's go. It's one thing if you are a functioning alcoholic, but what about the people who are not? Do they even get sober? I've always wondered about this because I used to have a neighbor named Jack who was an end-stage alcoholic, and a lot of us out there are suffering from the same thing. When I was a kid, I knew him from 1995 to 2005, between the ages of 9 and 19. When he finally died, I was surprised he actually lived as long as he did. He was a drunk, 24/7. I would always see him walking to the liquor store at 7 a.m. sharp when I was waiting for the school bus. He was friendly and would always wave hello to the kids. He was in his 40s and still lived with his mother, who was very poor because she relied on Social Security. I honestly don't even know how she afforded the rent in our apartment building, let alone food. Jack never worked. Jack never worked any kind of job, and he didn't even have a license. He never did anything with his life whatsoever. Literally, the only productive activity I ever saw him do was mow the lawn for the building next door for some beer money. But most of his beer money he got came from his mom. A typical day for him would be walk to the liquor store at 7 a.m., get his beer for the day, go home, hang out, and literally do nothing. Maybe mow the neighbor's grass in the afternoon and hang out and drink with his friend and listen to rock music in the parking lot next door at night. Sometimes. And occasionally, him and the friend went paramotoring over the park. Personal airplane. Oh, that's one of those little personal airplane things where you fly in the parachute thing. I'm surprised he didn't get arrested for that. I wouldn't be surprised if he hooked up with the random women that he met in bars. At least in the beginning. I'd hate like hell to think that he might have kids out there who have no idea who their father is. I certainly hope all the alcohol made him sterile. He was basically still living the lifestyle of a teenager in his 40s. So I often wondered, if he did stop drinking, how would he get all that time back, since he had nothing to show for his life? For him, I feel like he pretty much would have been in the same situation as someone who had woken up from a coma of 30 years. He would have had to learn how to not only not rely on alcohol, but also how to take care of himself and to be an adult. At least functioning alcoholics manage to work at jobs and accomplish things so they have somewhere to go with their life when they get sober. But Jack didn't have anything. By the time I was in high school, he finally reached the point where he needed to be hospitalized for GI bleeds. So we knew he was near the end. I used to get off the school bus and wonder if I might find him lying dead nearby in the woods behind our apartments by the road, or if his mom would be the one to find him. When I was in my first year of college, Jack's mom died. He managed to stay in the apartment for a little while longer, but then he finally got kicked out and became homeless. Sure enough, he was found dead in a ditch down the road from where I used to get off the bus, just steps from the liquor store. This wasn't in some crappy poor neighborhood either. This was a good neighborhood in a solidly middle-class small town in New Jersey. After he died, my brother, who was 15 at the time, took over his lawn mowing job. Folks, I was almost Jack. I was in my 40s when I quit drinking alcohol. I had been hospitalized multiple times. Melissa 0774, thank you for sharing this story, because this story resonates with me on so many levels, and it makes me sad to know that Jack had to suffer this alcoholism his whole life, and he was enabled by his mother, who I assume was just trying to keep him nearby, because what I learned later, folks, is that Jack's father had passed away also, and Jack's father was an alcoholic too. So I imagine the mother was doing everything she can to grasp on. Now, folks, we don't take other people's inventory. However, this story is powerful because you might be in the same boat. You might be the person going to the liquor store every morning at 7 a.m. I used to go directly when they opened up, and I didn't have a car because I drank mine, so I would have to walk with a backpack down the street, hoping nobody would see me going to get my morning liquor, beer in my case, but still, I was almost Jack. And, you know, it's sad to know that Jack died alone. It's sad to know that Jack died on the way, presumably, to the liquor store. And it's even more sad to know that his mom found him. This story could be your story. This story was almost my story. And I think, and I don't want to assume, so Melissa, please respond in the comments below, because I think you cared about Jack, because Jack was a friendly person. Jack smiled, Jack waved. Jack didn't do anything to disrupt your life. You just had to observe his from the outside looking in. And I know what that's like, because I watched my father go through the same thing, and thankfully he didn't die. And my wife had to watch me go through the same patterns in life and through my alcoholism. But I was fortunate. I was fortunate to be able to forecast that this was going to kill me, and be able to, and don't laugh, but have an out-of-body experience to where my higher power said, look, man, there's something better for you waiting right now. All you got to do is put down that bottle, bro. And to you, Melissa, or to somebody else, that might seem easy. But I'm going to tell you, as someone who suffered from alcoholism for 23 plus years, is that daggone it, it's not. And once your brain is rewired to think that this is the way you survive, or if you're brought up in that environment, and a lot of folks will argue with me about this, and if they do feel that way, please drop those comments below. Because I was living Jack's story, but I was doing it in a functioning manner, so to speak, because I would argue that, you know, you can get things done as an alcoholic. You can have a job, but are you truly ever really present? For that, I'm going to say no, because I know for a fact I was never present in my son's life. I was never present at work. I was never present for anything except to show up to get that drink at 10 a.m. when my liquor store is open. And as a matter of fact, even more to touch base with this, Melissa, and to all of you. When I was in New Jersey, I was a recruiter, and I recruited in Burlington, New Jersey, and Medford, and Delran, and Riverside. And if you've ever been in New Jersey and you know these neighborhoods, aside from Burlington, they were beautiful, they were wonderful, and they were middle class and blah, blah, blah. And I'm also accustomed to the lower class, because that's where I came from, so to speak, the poor neighborhoods. And you know, I was Jack. I slapped my backpack on right when I know the liquor store is getting ready to open on the weekend, on the weekday if I was off. And I would hike my way to the liquor store. It didn't matter what it took for me to get my alcohol. I was going to go get it. And Jack did the same thing because that was Jack's survival mechanism. And for all of you out there who doubt if Jack's story is your story, just do a little inward journey, a little inward looking. Be honest with yourself and ask yourself if parts of Jack's story resonate with you. Ask yourself if this may be a pattern that you're living, and hopefully you don't have to reach the same bottom that Jack did. Melissa, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm looking at the time, folks. I got to get to work, but I want to come back to this, and I want to know what you think in the comments below, because, you know, I was almost Jack. And I'm just going to read my response to close this, my initial response. And you also let me know what you think in the comments below about Jack's story, because you might be Jack. And in the beginning of this video, you didn't know Jack, but now you do. So my comment to Melissa was, this story is sad and a reality that many alcoholics suffered. I don't know much about Jack, but I can imagine either mom was an alcoholic herself, and this was a normal life that she knew and accepted, or that she and Jack were completely codependent, and she didn't know how else to love him than to enable him. For many years, I feared retirement because that meant I would have no accountability to anybody, and I would have a steady stream of income. And that meant I can go get drunk whenever I want. That meant that money wasn't going to stop. I was scared to retire. I was petrified, and I had to make certain moves in order to prepare myself to leave the Army. And fortunately, I was called out on my drinking, and I was called out on blood tests, and I was called out about losing my career and everything else. And that was part of my wake up to know that alcohol was doing nothing good in my life. And I retired, folks, and I retired sober. And I retired in 2018. I haven't had one sip of alcohol since 2016, February 21st. So folks, if you need help or you need anything from me, let me know. There are links in the description below. Life is a daggone garden, dig it. And guess what? At Melissa0774, thank you so much for Jack's story. Thank you so much for being honest, and thank you so much for being there, even though you couldn't be the help that Jack needed. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you sharing your story. If you got stories and you want to shoot them out, please send them. I think that it's important that people hear these, and I gotta go. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.